HMS Griffin was a G-class destroyer, built from the Royal Navy in the mid-1930s. In World War II she took part in the Norwegian Campaign of April to May 1940 and the Battle of Dakar in September before being transferred to the Mediterranean Fleet in November. She generally escorted larger ships of the Mediterranean Fleet as they protected convoys against attacks from the Italian fleet. Griffin took part in the Battle of Cape Matapan in March 1941 and the evacuations of Greece and Crete in April to May 1941. In June she took part in the Syria-Lebanon campaign and was escorting convoys and the larger ships of the Mediterranean Fleet until she was transferred to the Eastern Fleet. In March 1942, Griffin saw no action in the Japanese Indian Ocean raid in April, but was escorting convoys for most of her time in the Indian Ocean. In June she returned to the Mediterranean to escort another convoy to Malta in Operation Vigorous. Beginning in November 1942, she was converted to an escort destroyer in the United Kingdom and was transferred to the Royal Canadian Navy on 1 March 1943. The ship, now renamed HMS Ottawa, was assigned to escort convoys in the North Atlantic until she was transferred in May 1944 to protect the forces involved with the Normandy landings. Working with other destroyers, Ottawa sank 3 German submarines off the French coast before she returned to Canada for a lengthy refit. After the end of the European War in May 1945, she was used to bring Canadian troops until she was paid off in October 1945. Ottawa was sold for scrap in August 1946. Description: Griffin displaced 1,350 long tons at standard load and 1,883 long tons at deep load. She had an overall length of 323 feet, a beam of 33 feet and a draft of 12 feet 5 inches. She was powered by Parsons-geared steam turbines, driving 2 shafts, which developed a total of 34,000 shaft horsepower and gave a maximum speed of 36 knots. Steam for the turbines was provided by 3 Admiralty 3-drum boilers. Griffin carried a maximum of 470 long tons of fuel oil that gave her range of 5,530 nautical miles at 15 knots. Her complement was 137 officers and men in peacetime, but it increased to 146 in wartime. The ship mounted 445 caliber 4.7-inch Mark 9 guns in single mounts. For anti-aircraft defense, Griffin had 2 quadruple Mark 1 mounts for the 0.5-inch Vickers Mark 3 machine gun. She was fitted with 2 above-water quadruple torpedo tube mounts for 21-inch torpedoes. 1 depth charge rail and 2 throwers were fitted. 20 depth charges were originally carried, but this increased to 35 shortly after the war began. Beginning in mid-1940, her anti-aircraft armament was increased, although when exactly the modifications were made is not known. The rear set of torpedo tubes was replaced by a 3-inch AA gun and the quadruple 50 caliber Vickers mounts were replaced by a 20mm Lycon autocannon. 2 more Lycon guns were also added in the forward superstructure. Service history: Griffin was laid down by Vickers Armstrong's Naval Construction Works at Barrow-in-Furness on 20 September 1934, launched on 15 August 1935, and completed on 6 March 1936. Excluding government-furnished equipment such as armament, she cost £248,518. Griffin joined her sisters and was assigned to the first destroyer flotilla of the Mediterranean Fleet upon commissioning. She escorted the ocean liner SS Strathnava between Malta and Alexandria in the Munich crisis in September 1938. She then escorted the light cruiser Arethusa on her voyage to Aden. She collided with the target destroyer Shikari on the 2nd of February 1939 and her repairs were completed 5 days later. On the 3rd of September 1939 Griffin was in Alexandria and still assigned to the 1st destroyer flotilla. In October she was transferred to home waters. On the 7th of October she was escorting the 7,289 GRT troopship Muhammad Ali El Kabir from Avonmouth bound for Gibraltar when the German submarine U-38 torpedoed the troopship in the western approaches about 230 nautical miles west of Bloody Foreland in Ireland. 96 people were killed, but Griffin attacked and chased away the submarine with depth charges and then rescued 766 survivors, whom she landed at Greenock on the Firth of Clyde on the 9th of October. She rejoined her flotilla at Harwich in November, where they patrolled the North Sea and escorted local convoys. She rescued survivors from her sister Gypsy after the ship struck a mine off Harwich on the 21st of November. She was damaged the same month and was under repair until the 6th of December. In preparation for the Norwegian campaign, Griffin was transferred to the home fleet at Scapa Flow in April 1940. Griffin escorted the capital ships of the home fleet as they sorted into the North Sea on the 7th of April and continued that duty for the next several weeks. On the 24th of April, Griffin and the destroyer Acheron captured the German trawler Schiff 26, bound for Narvik with a cargo that included mines and torpedoes. She evacuated British and French troops from Namsos, and rescued survivors from the destroyer Afridi after she was sunk by Junkers Ju-87 Stuka dive bombers on the 3rd of May. The Stukas also attacked Griffin, without success. Griffin was then transferred to the 13th Destroyer Flotilla of the North Atlantic Command at Gibraltar. She escorted the capital ships of Force H in the Battle of Dakar on the 23rd of September, but was not engaged. On the 20th of October, with her sisters Gallant and Hotspur, she sank the Italian submarine La Folle off Melilla. Griffin escorted the battleship Barham and the cruisers Berwick and Glasgow in Operation Coat in early November as they joined the Mediterranean Fleet. Griffin herself was transferred to the 14th Destroyer Flotilla in Alexandria and took part in the inconclusive Battle of Cape Matapan on 27 November in Operation Collar. In Operation Excess, Gallant struck a mine off Pantellaria on the 10th of January 1941, and Griffin rescued most of the survivors. In February 1941 she was transferred to the Red Sea, where she escorted the aircraft carrier Formidable in the latter's operations in support of the military offensive in Italian Somaliland. Griffin escorted the capital ships of the Mediterranean Fleet in the Battle of Cape Matapan on 28-29 March. With her sister Greyhound, she attacked some of the Italian destroyers but lost them when they passed through their own smokescreen. Griffin, the Australian destroyer Stuart, and the gunboat Nap bombarded Axis positions near Sollum in northwestern Egypt on the 15th of April. She took part in the evacuation of British, Australian and New Zealand troops from Greece at the end of April. On the 27th of April she rescued 50 survivors from the destroyers Diamond and Rheineck, which had been sunk by German aircraft in the Sea of Crete. She again escorted the capital ships of the Mediterranean Fleet as they covered a convoy from Alexandria to Malta on the 8th of May. In the evacuation of Crete at the end of May, Griffin evacuated escorted 720 men from Suda Bay. During Operation Exporter, the ship escorted the Australian light cruiser Perth as she bombarded Vichy French positions in Lebanon on the 2nd of July. Griffin escorted convoys to and from Tobruk from July to November. On the 25th of November, she was escorting the battleships of the Mediterranean Fleet when Bahrain was torpedoed by German submarine U-331. She escorted the light cruiser Naiad when that ship bombarded Derna in early December and was transferred to the 2nd Destroyer Flotilla later that month. Griffin escorted convoys to Malta in January and February 1942, until she was transferred to the Eastern Fleet in the Indian Ocean in late February. Griffin was assigned to save the fleet in the Indian Ocean raid by the Japanese in early April 1942. She returned to the Mediterranean to take part in Operation Vigorous, another convoy from Alexandria to Malta, in June. She rejoined the Eastern Fleet afterwards and escorted convoys there until ordered home to begin conversion to an escort destroyer in September. Work on the conversion began on the 2nd of November in Southampton and included the removal of two 4.7-INCH guns and the 12-pounder AA gun, and the replacement with a Hedgehog anti-submarine mortar forward and additional depth charges aft. Type 286 and 271 radar sets were fitted, as well as additional 20mm Lycon AA guns. While still refitting, on the 1st of March 1943, Griffin was transferred to the Royal Canadian Navy and commissioned on the 20th of March, 4 days before her conversion was finished. The ship was renamed Ottawa on the 10th of April to commemorate an earlier HMCS Ottawa which had been sunk. After working up at Tobermory, she sailed for Canada and was gifted to the Canadians on the 15th of June. Ottawa became the senior ship of Escort Group C5, which worked between St. John's, Newfoundland, and Derry, Northern Ireland until May 1944 when she became the senior ship of the 11th Escort Group. The 11th consisted of the Canadian destroyers Kootenay, Chaudière, Gatineau, and St. Laurent and were tasked to protect the invasion forces for D-Day. On the 6th of July 1944, Ottawa, Kootenay, and a British frigate status sank U-678 off Beachy Head, Sussex. Ottawa and Chaudière sank U-621 on the 16th of August near La Rochelle, and 2 days later they sank U-984 west of Brest. Ottawa was refitted in St. John's between the 12th of October 1944 and the 26th of February 1945. On the 11th of March she collided with the Canadian minesweeper Stratford off Halifax and was under repair until the 30th of April. After the end of the war in May, she ferried Canadian troops back to Canada until she was paid off on the 31st of October. Ottawa was sold to the International Iron and Metal Company in August 1946 and subsequently broken up.